Hello, my name is Michael Lambert. Now, I was going to talk today about the big election, about the election which the whole world is watching with trepidation, I think. And I speak, of course, of the election between Honest Bob and the crazy Rottweiler. But I think since plenty of other people have plenty to say about it, and I've got nothing particularly original to say about it, I'm going to give it a miss this week. But instead, I want to talk about something that an experience I had last week, which I think convinced me finally, and I've been going this way for a long time, that frankly we're doomed. I mean, it's almost impossible to see any way out of the situation we're in at the moment. Now, you remember that last year and previously, whenever anybody criticised Brexit, the Tories, particularly government ministers, would say, it's just as bad everywhere else, Oh yes, everybody's suffering. Everybody's suffering. It's all COVID. It's all the war in Ukraine. And the EU's in a terrible state. Germany, basket case, practically bankrupt. Now, I knew this was all rubbish. I knew it was absolute, utter rubbish. It was just things they were saying. And of course, these comments were all being repeated by the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror and so on. And so I thought, in my own tiny little way, I'd try and just show how things are in the EU and whether things are as bad there as they are here. And so I went off last year to 3 or 4 different countries and various provincial towns just to see how the quality of life was. So I went to Germany and then to Italy and then to Belgium and then to Poland. And in each town I visited, I could see quite clearly, and I could show quite clearly that the quality of life was much better than here. There weren't the boarded up shops and the people sleeping in the streets and the graffiti and all the sort of things that we're getting used to in this country. And I hadn't been anywhere else for quite a long time until last week, and I thought I'd do another of these videos, and I went to Sweden. I went to Gothenburg. And I have to say it was quite an eye-opener, and it convinced me quite firmly that our situation is pretty hopeless. It is so bad that it's pretty hopeless. And given the attitude of the government at the moment that we're going to make Brexit work and that we're not going to get very much closer to Europe other than being nice to them and polite to them, it convinced me really that things are pretty hopeless. What I found in Gothenburg was a city that was extremely clean, extremely tidy, extremely well ordered, good public transport. I didn't see, I must have passed hundreds of shops. I definitely didn't see a single boarded up shop. I saw no homeless people, no graffiti. I spoke to at least 40 or 50 people, and every single person I spoke to was fluent in English. I think the only person out of the whole 40 or 50 who didn't speak English was a Mexican lady who was visiting her sister. And so the shops were all full, and the shopping centres were full, and restaurants were full. The food in the shops was just beyond belief, and the food in the restaurants was also incredible. Beautiful parks, all beautifully manicured. It was just a wonderful city, and I kept thinking to myself whilst I was there, how if we remained in the EU, we should have been something like this. Maybe not quite as nice, but our towns and cities should be like this. If we hadn't committed to spending billions and billions and billions and millions of hours of civil service and politicians' time in order to make it more difficult to do business with the EU, because that's all we've been doing. All this work has been to make business more difficult. If we hadn't spent all that money and all that time, and if instead we'd spent it on improving our towns and cities and our public services, maybe things would have been very much different. And I came away feeling very sad, really. I came away coming back to the UK, where I know everybody's so miserable, and everybody's so fed up, and everybody's so pessimistic, and everybody knows things are not going to get better quickly. There's no reason to believe why they would do, and I think it's very sad. And I want to just give you another analogy, similar to one I've given you previously, because I notice now, I detested the Tories. I really hated this past government. I thought they were dishonest, they were corrupt, they were incompetent, they were awful people. And of course, the worst culprit of all was Boris Johnson. And I have to say, and I know people don't like me saying it, I know people will unsubscribe if I say it, but I'm very disappointed with the new Labour government. I'm really disappointed, and I'm disappointed particularly with Keir Starmer. I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's a very good politician. And I think whereas they're doing lots and lots of good things, don't get me wrong, they're doing a lot of good things socially and for workers and all the rest of it. Great stuff. I think when it comes to commerce, business, the economy, I think they are clueless, absolutely clueless. And I notice now the latest slogan, because governments have to have slogans now, the latest national slogan is Britain is open for business. Now, what does that mean? I'd be very interested to what does it mean? If you say Britain is now open for business, that kind of implies that previously it wasn't open for business. It was closed. Was under the Tories, was it closed for business then, or was it not as open? What does opening for business mean? We're going to try and attract some foreign investment. We're going to try and lend a bit of money for people to start a few businesses or something, or we're going to spend a bit of money on green energy. Is that open for business? I mean, is that change things really? I thought, just to give you, again, as I say, an analogy similar to one I've given previously. Suppose you've got a shopping centre, you've got 28 shops in there, and 27 of them are all doing business, doing commerce, doing great. And the 28th shop, it's put a gate on the door. You can't get in unless you queue up, and then when you queue up, you're allowed a limited time in the shop. You got 30 minutes, you've got a passport, you've got a stamp, you've got 30 minutes to do your shopping. And you go to buy whatever you're going to buy. You get to the till, and they say, "All right, you're sort of filling in forms, and you've got to pay some duty on this, and you can pay this and pay that. You might need an agent to complete your paperwork and so on. And you won't necessarily be able to take the goods away today because it'll take time to process the paperwork. And I'm afraid we have to put all our prices up to cover this new paperwork, and you'll have to have the goods delivered, and that'll cost you extra, because you can't take them away today." Now, how much business is that shop going to do compared with the other 27 who are just trading normally? He's not going to do any. But supposing the owner of the business says, the manager, he says, "Look, a brilliant idea. I can see that the way things at the moment, if we don't do something, we're going to be in trouble because we haven't got enough money coming in to even pay the rent. But I've got an idea to solve all our problems. So what we're going to do, we're going to get a sign made, big sign, fantastic neon electronic sign. It'll be a fantastic sign. And we're going to put it right across the top of the shop, huge letters. It'll say, 'We are open for business.'" And what's that going to do? Nothing. So because of Brexit, I think we are doomed. I think, I've said so many times before, outside the EU, we really don't have a future because we don't have any great specialities. And we hear a lot about going for growth. That's another slogan. But, I mean, where's the growth coming from? But there are two other reasons also which I think contribute greatly to our downfall. And I think they're also very important. And the first of these is property prices. Now, we all know that property has become extremely expensive in the UK. It's gone up enormously over the past 20 years or so. And a lot of people who own houses, they think, well, I bought my house for £50,000 20 years ago. It's now worth nearly $1 million. And they think, well, that's fantastic. I'm so wealthy. I've got this truly valuable house. But they don't tend to think very often, well, if I sell my house and I want to buy another house, I'm going to find that every other house has gone up 20 times in value. And so I'm not going to be any better off. Unless you sell your house and you're going to buy something else with it and then rent, you're not going to be any better off anyway. And if you're going to rent, well, you're going to spend all your money in rent. And unless you're going to go to another country with your money, which is a smart move, and where property is much cheaper, there's no benefit. There's no benefit to you if your house is worth £10,000 or £1 million. It's a house. And the big problem with this, and I don't think people think about this enough, is that so much money is being sucked out of the economy in mortgage repayments and in rent that's so so many people have no disposable income after they pay their rent and their mortgage. And you look at the economy, you look at how pubs are closing, how restaurants are closing, you hear how 60-odd thousand businesses are on the point of bankruptcy. And this isn't totally unconnected with the fact that people haven't got any money because they're spending all their money on rent and mortgages. It just stands to reason. If you suck so much money out of the economy in order to inflate property prices, you're bound to damage the economy because nobody's got any money. And I think that's a big problem. And I do foresee, I've said before, I just don't think this is sustainable, this constantly increasing prices. I think the only way prices will stay up is if foreigners start coming in buying. And I think it's very likely, in my view, that in a few years' time, when people start finding they simply cannot afford to pay the mortgage any longer, they cannot afford to buy prices, that big American pension companies and property companies are going to move in. They'll swoop in and they'll buy just up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of houses, and we'll all be renting from Houston Realty Incorporated or something. It's just totally unsustainable, and it is so stupid. The fact that a nation puts so much money into an asset which doesn't earn anything anyway. The house doesn't earn you anything. So that's the second reason why I think we're in the mess we're in. But the third reason is something that I've also mentioned before, and it concerns the fact that we've sold off so much to foreigners. And I don't really quite know why this happened. It all started, I think, in Thatcher's time with privatisation, but it's not just the electricity and the gas and the water and the railways, the majority of which are all owned by foreigners now. It's so much else. I think I mentioned before, it's Heathrow Airport, it's Gatwick Airport, it's Felixstowe Container Port, the biggest container port in the country where all the containers come in, and that's owned by a Chinese company. And can you imagine if a British company owned Shanghai Container Port and actually charged money and made profit out of containers moving through Shanghai port? I mean, it's unthinkable. And you look at so much else that's, you look at Hinkley Power Station, and where we've already signed up to pay over the odds for electricity, which will subsidise French electricity, and which is owned by the French and the Chinese again. And you look at so many of these examples, and you look at the absurdities whereby, in order to live, one of the benefits of Brexit was that we could have blue passports, and there are blue passports being printed by a French company who are actually, I think, are using a Polish printer. And I think one of the biggest absurdities of all is that Sevington, where they control the lorries coming into the UK from France, is being run by a French company. So the French company is checking lorries coming in from France. And we're paying them for it. But you see, the significant thing about all this... Oh, also there's Royal Mail. This one with the crest, Been told a short while ago, last month, I think, to a gentleman from the Czech Republic. He now owns it, and you've seen stamp prices have gone up, and no doubt they'll go up a lot more. But no, it's people are worried about, for example, about the Americans buying the National Health Service, privatising it. Well, you've only got to worry slightly about that, because they won't buy all of it. They'll only buy the profitable bits. They'll sign up the brain surgeons and they'll sign up the dentists, and they're not interested in. There's no money made in curing verrucas. They want all the high tech stuff. And the medicines, of course. And so, and this is really the really important point, when you've got all these enterprises, all these utilities, all these companies, all these organisations, these ports and airports and everything, all making money, they're all businesses. And they're there to make money. Nobody sets up a business saying, I'm going to set up this business because I want to please people. I've set up a business because I want to make money. They all want to make money. They've all invested, all these foreigners, in British businesses because they know they're going to make money. But what is going to happen to that money? Is it going to stay in this country and improve things here? No, it's going off to shareholders all around the world. making our economy so much weaker. And this is, I don't believe it's happened anywhere else in the world. It's complete and utter insanity. But you just can't reverse this. You can't start buying back business. Where's the money going to come from? What we've done in order to maintain a certain standard of living over the years is we've just sold everything off. And now it's all gone, or most of it's gone. All the valuable bits have gone. Anything that's valuable, we know we're now in crisis. We know that we're going to be having a very bad time economically, and that's the perfect time for people to swoop in and buy up assets. And so more and more foreigners are going to buy more and more things, particularly Americans, I think. And I think what's going to happen is that the younger generation who are growing up now are going to be really, really, really angry. The idea that your parents and grandparents, the generations, have sold off everything, so there's nothing worth having left. And if you want to get a job, you're working for foreigners anyway. It's really, really sad. And to have had this triple whammy, if you like, I hate that expression, but anyway, to have Brexit and property prices going crazy and foreigners buying everything is really... You couldn't do a much better job if you wanted to destroy an economy. And as I say, there's no way of turning it around. It just is impossible. You're not going to buy back all these foreign businesses, these foreign-owned businesses, and you're not going to reduce house prices. We know that's not going to happen. And the damage of Brexit continues. We see Rachel Reeves scratching around to raise 20 billion and rumours of tax increases and more cuts and so on, and leaving the EU cost us 40 billion a year in tax. So it's a pretty messy situation, which I've talked about a number of times previously, and so there it is. Anyway, I think that's probably enough. But if you watch this far, thank you very much. The video I made on Gothenburg, I should be posting next Saturday. So if you're at all interested, please have a look at that. As I say, it was a great shock to me to see just how good life could have been, and to come back here and just see what a mess everything is in. But anyway, if you watch this far, thank you, and until next time, bye for now.